If you follow the Japanese music scene, there is no way you haven't heard the guitar work of TAIKING. I mean, as the guitarist for the incredible band Suchmos, he really helps shape a sound that just effortlessly weaves together rock, jazz, and hip-hop. But his influence, well, it goes so much further than that.
Honestly, he's become one of the most sought-after support guitarists out there. We're talking about him hitting the stage with massive names like pop superstar Fuji Kaze and the legendary rock band Radwimps. And the coolest part? He brings this totally unique flavor to every single project, managing to adopt his tone while, always sounding unmistakably like himself.
So, that's the big question, right? How in the world does he pull off a tone that's so distinct and yet so versatile? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're going to deconstruct his entire signal chain, from his whole philosophy and choice of guitar, all the way down to the pedals he uses to paint with sound. Let's dive in.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the foundation of his entire sound. And it doesn't actually start with a piece of gear. It all begins with a very specific mindset and his deep, deep connection to one particular kind of guitar.
This quote right here, it's everything. This is where TAIKING's whole philosophy begins. He looks at the Fender Stratocaster as a challenge. Some guitars with really hot pickups, they kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. But he believes a Strat is different. To make it really roar, that takes serious skill and touch and nuance. And he's totally drawn to that idea of proving his chops on an instrument that doesn't hide anything.
And man, his commitment to the Strat is so clear when you look at his collection. His number one is a boutique model from Fulltone, but he's got everything from a priceless '64 vintage Fender to these super reliable Japanese-made workhorses. He even famously snagged an '80s model from a recycle shop. That just goes to show you it's not about the price tag for him, it's all about the unique voice of the Stratocaster. He also has this really fascinating take on the difference between American and Japanese-made Fenders. He describes the USA models as being rougher, more rugged, perfect for really digging in, but the Japanese models, he feels they're more delicate and refined. And look, this isn't about one being better than the other. For him, it's about having this whole palette of similar, yet totally distinct tones to pull from for any song.
All right, next up, the amplifier. If the Strat is the foundation, the amp is where TAIKING completely throws the rulebook out the window to find the very core of his signature cutting tone.
You might think that sharp, super clear sound he gets comes from some fancy overdrive or a special boost pedal, but nope, you'd be wrong. The real secret is how he sets up his vintage-style Marshall JTM 45 amplifier. He uses this incredibly unconventional approach to get a sound that can just slice right through any mix.
Okay, here's the magic formula, and it is completely backwards from what most people do. He cranks the presence and the treble all the way up, and the bass, he cuts it to almost zero. Now, this creates a sound that's super bright, maybe even a little harsh right at the source. But why? Because it gives him this huge canvas of frequencies to work with. He then uses his guitar's simple tone knob to roll off that extra bite and perfectly sculpt the sound on the fly. It's just a brilliant technique for staying clear and present no matter how busy the band gets.
So with that foundational tone locked in from the guitar and the amp, TAIKING then turns to his pretty sophisticated pedal board to add all the color, texture, and dimension to his sound.
Now, to get all his pedals working together perfectly, he uses something called the 4-cable method. The simple way to think about it is this. It lets him put his dirt pedals, like overdrive, in front of the amp to push it harder. But then he puts his spacey effects, like delay and reverb, in the amp's effects loop after the main crunch. This keeps all those beautiful ambient sounds super clean and clear so they don't get all muddy from the amp's natural distortion.
The brain of his whole board is a Boss MS3 switcher. His main drive tone? It comes from a legendary circuit, an Ibanez tube screamer. But for solos, he doesn't switch sounds. Instead, he gain stacks. He just kicks on an organic sounds Hydra to push that tube screamer into this beautiful singing sustain. And for all that gorgeous ambience you hear, he's all in on the modern digital power of the Source Audio Nemesis and Ventris, which give him studio-quality delays and reverbs right at his feet.
All right, so we've totally deconstructed his rig. But how can you and I get to play around with this kind of sound without, taking out a second mortgage? Let's look at some really accessible gear that can get you right into that TAIKING sonic territory.
So here's how you can get into that sonic ballpark without the pro-level price tag. A Fender Player Stratocaster, that's going to get you that essential feel and sound. For the amp, a modeling amp like the Boss Katana is perfect because you can actually pick a vintage Marshall model and copy those exact extreme EQ settings we talked about. An iconic Boss SD1 will get you incredibly close to that tube screamer crunch. And for effects, the DD8 and RV6 pedals deliver world-class delay and reverb that honestly rival units that cost way, way more.
But let's end on what might be the most important piece of this entire puzzle. It's a piece of advice from TAIKING's late bandmate in Suchmos, HSU. His point was simple: don't get lost chasing gear that you see on the internet. Trust your own ears, trust the feeling that an instrument gives you in your hands. After all this breakdown and analysis, just remember that gear is only a tool. The music, that comes from you. The goal isn't just to copy someone else's sound, it's about finding your own.